I'm going to go ahead and start, everybody. This is best practices for database deployments. People are going to still be filtering in, but we'll go ahead and start. This is Justin Caldicott. My name is Grant Fritchey, and we both work for Redgate Software. I am a DBA. He is a developer, and you'll notice that we are not shedding blood. So it's aces. What? DBAs in the audience, please, please, please raise your hands. Excellent, that's good. Developers in the audience. Okay, developers, honestly, when we talk about this, what we're going to be talking about here, explain everything to your DBA friends, okay? DBAs, this is really for you guys. This is really important stuff. Here it is really in a nutshell. Developers have spent the last 30 years or so figuring out how to develop and deploy software, and they've gotten really good at it. DBAs, we've spent our time working on uptime, recoverability, availability, and disaster recovery, right? And we've gotten really good at that. Anyone notice a disconnect? That's the problem. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So the database problem. I had a team, development team, great team, smart guys. They came up to me and said, I need an information persistence layer. I was like, okay. Not sure what that is. Well, basically it's going to be tables, columns, data. You mean a database? No, we need an information persistence layer. Well, no, I mean, okay, but I mean, we're going to put this in SQL Server. Oh yeah, SQL Server. What, so you want a cube? No, not a cube. We just want, an information persistence layer. Like, so you mean a database? No, we really don't want a database. We don't have to deal with a database. And what was going on was these developers, yes, they wanted SQL Server. Yes, they wanted a database. But the concept of database had gotten so filthy in their mind that they just had to have a different language for it. They had to have a different term so that they could feel good about doing the same thing that they were doing without putting their stuff into a database. And I just realized it was my fault. I'd screwed up badly. I'd probably treated them horribly. And, okay, granted, a few times they deserved it, but not every time. And so the key point is that businesses are really crazy about data. They really want it to stick around. And so they get these things called databases. You put data into them, and yeah, it's not information, it's data, and it gets stored and it gets kept. And the real key is that it has to get kept. It's not like code. The problem is code, you can swap it out, right? Drop that stuff, put a new one in. Everything's improved. And the first time you do that to your production database, the phone rings, right? I mean, anybody dropped it? Come on, fess up. One brave soul in the back. Yeah, I did. It happens, right? But the whole thing is that you get this fight between developers and DBAs, and it shouldn't be there. The whole object impedance, the object relational impedance mismatch thing. The Vietnam of software development. Why? Why should you fight? We're both trying to get the same thing. We're trying to keep a business afloat. So let's talk about the solution. Databases have certain things that we have to do. Production systems have to be maintained. We have to keep those things online, we have to keep them available, and we can't drop them and recreate them like code. Understood. Except for that, we should be treating databases like code. We should absolutely be treating them like code. They are code to all intents and purposes. Those store procedures, those table structures, they're all inside of scripts. It's exactly like code. And developers are smart, capable people when they're not being a pain. Okay? They are great at their jobs, and one of their jobs that they've been spending years and years and years working out is how to deploy code in an efficient, quick, accurate fashion. Crap. Let's just tail along with them, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. They've already done it for us. So let's get hooked into the development team. Let's create a deployment and development process for our databases based on, if not completely mirrored by, The development process that you guys have. I don't care what it is. Throw out some processes. Agile, right? What else? Anybody? What's that one?
I'm not sure.
I've heard of it before. I just don't remember it. Any more? Quick. Scrum. Yes.
Kanban.
What? Okay. We'll have to talk about that one. Get your database in source control. Treat it like code. Put tests in place to validate the database. Automate all this stuff so that human beings are not involved. Because DBAs, how many development teams do you support? 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. 7 was my max. At 7, I was getting really crazy. But you know what? You automate deployments for 7 of them, and then you're at least not sitting there manually moving things around all day, every day. So you automate stuff, and you follow the local database paradigm. Here's the key, and this is the hard part, okay? This is really the hard part. You have to come up with a process. Devs probably already have one, most of them. DBAs, you may have one too, but yours may not match the devs. And the process, whatever it is, and you guys figure it out, not me, man, you guys figure it out. Whatever that process is, you follow it. And get management to buy in. Any managers in the audience? Raise your hands, you chickens. Okay, good. You guys, granted, all the stuff that, all this burdens that are put on your shoulders, okay, I won't say I understand, but I appreciate. You guys have to back us up. If we say we come up with a process, you have to back us up. I had a team, great team, nice guys, but they were always like, we need a deployment today. Well, deployments are on Tuesday, right? Yeah, but we need one today. Okay, fine, it's Thursday, I'll give you a deployment, no big deal, it's just one-off, right? Yeah, it's just a one-off. Cool. Friday, I need a deployment. What happened to the deployment on Tuesdays? Well, yeah, but this, it's just a one-off. Yesterday's was a one-off too, and this would make a two-off. Well, just this one, okay, fine, just this one time. Guess what happened on Monday? Monday, we needed another deployment. And I was like, wait, we're going to deploy tomorrow. What? Yeah, but we need one now. It's like, okay, you know what? We're going to go talk to the manager. The manager's like, well, if they need a deployment. Great, thanks. Okay, here's the deal. Let's rewrite the process so that they get to do deployment anytime they want. And that's what we're going to write down. Well, no, that's crazy. Yeah, but that's what we're doing. So let's write it down. Let's make it. Yeah, they didn't want to. Then we, back and forth, and finally the managers came on and said, well, this is nuts. So, they laid it out. We got it all laid out. Everybody agreed. And then the next time they came up and said, hey, by the way, we need a one-off, I went, really? Talk to my manager. And the manager went, no, we had that long meeting, remember? And it stopped. Okay, so you've got to get that stuff. When you've got the process, follow it. Please, please, please. Exceptions have to be exceptional. And here's the hard part. Every DBA out there, or most of them anyway, are sysadmin at least on the server, on the SQL server, if not on the box. What's that mean? They can do what they want. Perfect. Do you have to follow the process? No, I do not. I get to do anything I want. Guys, no. Sorry. You're cool, you're great, you're smart, you're wonderful, but you're not that special. All right? You're not that unique a snowflake. You do need to follow the process the same as everybody else, okay? Everybody all right with this so far? None of this is crazy. This is common sense, really, but it's necessary stuff. Okay, nobody's screaming. So, development thinks about the world like this. I'm developing. Great things are going to come out of that. I'll probably go through some sort of QA testing, pre-prod process, maybe financial testing, maybe load testing, all kinds of the cool stuff. And then my code goes to production and everyone loves me. Right? And this is how they think about it. And there's nothing wrong with this approach. There's nothing wrong with this thought. DBAs don't necessarily think about things like this. And because they don't think about things like this, the deployment process from a DBA standpoint looks a little different, okay? From a DBA standpoint, they're thinking about production. Because what do they care about? 3 a.m. 3 a.m., the world catches fire, the pager goes off, they get up. Developers, you guys don't even know what that's like. Most of you. Some of you do. I know some developers are on call. But DBAs, man, they're all like, oh God, yeah, I remember that. The poor guy that was out here earlier today that got called in because there was a problem on his production server. So they think about production first, and then they backwards engineer that process down. Okay, well, here's what I have to keep production up. You must give me this. To keep production up, I have to do things this way. And that's my first goal. And so you figure out what you need from there to get it from QA and from development. That doesn't change it. You'll notice we're still basically going from development up. It's just you're thinking about it the other way. So I'm not telling you a process to come up with. I'm not telling you how to do your job at all. I'm just telling you that you need to come up with that process inside your own systems, inside your own company, so that you can define it, communicate it, and automate it. You get those things done, and then suddenly things get better. For my thoughts, I need a production deployment script. Right? That's first thing I need. Production deployment script. That's just how it's going to work. So I need to test that script on a copy of production, working backwards, right? Thinking about it backwards. I'm going to generate a script from production from a label inside my source control system. I'm going to make sure that I've got a labeled code in my source control system. That's going to happen even before that. I mean, literally, in time, this stuff is going backwards. We're getting code from out of source control, right? And then you make changes to your code. Then you add changes, you know what I mean? That's how the time goes. But as a DBA, I'm thinking about it this way. My orientation is right up there. I must have production safe. And then we work backwards on making how that gets up there. Does that make sense to everyone? I mean, I can't think of it any other way, but it's the way I try to communicate it. Anytime I'm working with a development team, I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I have to have this. Tell me how I get there. Right? I'm willing to work with you any way you want, however you do your work, as long as I get that last thing so that I can do my job. Okay? So, you're going to use source control. Why do you use source control? Because you've only got two known states in the system. Production. Hopefully, you know what production looks like. Theory. How many people have like multiple SAs that you have no idea what they're doing? Anybody? I had a company like that. They gave it to everybody, including the receptionist. You know the only person who didn't ever make a change to the production? The receptionist. She was the only one smart enough not to ever touch the stupid thing. It's horrible. Production's one. The other source control. Everything else is in flux. You can't know what anything else is. Okay, immediately after you run a restore, I know what that is. But after that restore is done, who knows, right? Data changes, code changes. So you get this coupling in place, that source control in place. The source control allows you to couple your app code, your database code. It gives you a history of changes. It gives you auditing, and that's great because when Timmy, that guy, anybody remember Timmy from last year? When Timmy, that crazy person, either a DBA or developer, does something stupid, if everything's going out of source control through a process, you can find out who did it. Yay. That's always fun. You look, what the heck? Oh, God, Timmy. All right, let me go have a chat. So, source control.
Let's have a look. So we've had a demo this morning detailing source control a little bit, but obviously it's a very important part of this story, so we're going to just touch on it a little bit now. So this is so there are various ways that you could source control your database. This is Redgate's tool for doing so, SQL source control. And what we have is, this is the application we're developing, so the same one we've been seeing through the various sessions today, the Simple Talk website, ASP.NET website, SQL Server backend, and here is my local copy. So that was the local website, and this is the local database that I'm developing. So it's actually Steve's copy. There we go. So what we're going to do is, I've been tasked by my manager to make some changes to the website. So I need to add, we've got some comments here, 42 comments. I want to add the number of views to these articles as well. I also want to add an additional RSS feed. So I'm going to apply these changes really quickly. So I'm actually using, any SQL prompt users in the room? Cool. So this is the snippets feature that you're probably familiar with. So I'm going to use this to add the feed. So the feed is just static reference data that's source controlled alongside all of the schema. So you can version this in exactly the same way. So I'll run that script. And then also I'm going to add the views. So I've got I'm not going to do these changes right now. So we've got a change to the table. We're going to add the column. We're going to add also the extra item to our view as well. Run this. OK, so we've got those two changes.
Wait, who said you guys could use views? No, I don't know. Sorry.
Use views.
Keep going.
Let's keep going. Cyclic dependency. So if we now go across to the SQL source control tab and just give it a quick refresh, then we can see all of the changes that we've made. So we can see, for example, for the feeds, we can have a look at the SQL. We can see this is the change. We're inserting an additional item here with these values. Yes, it does. And we've also got the changes we've made to the tables and so on. And you can see the blue icons, the blue overlays over the Object Explorer here. So these just showing you where the changes are at a glance. So I'm going to add these. I'm going to commit these to my source control system. How does the source control actually commit these? So obviously you can put the changes alongside your app code. It's all just going to your existing source control system. In terms of how they're represented on disk, it's really simple. It's just SQL. It's just transparent T-SQL for the creation scripts for the objects. In the case of the data, it's just insert statements. So it's really simple, and that's what it's committing alongside the code. We mentioned also audit history. One really nice thing you can do is actually have a look at the history of the database. So we can see all of the changes that we've been making so far. It's quite nice. Cool. That's source control.
Cool. Thanks. Glengarry Glen Ross fans? Always be closing. Coffee is for closers, right? No? Okay. Great movie. Go watch it. Well, we've got a new thing. Always be continuously deploying. A, B, C, D. Right? Nice and simple. Why? Because every single deployment's practice. Deployment's a pain. DBAs, yeah? Developers going, what? God, replace the code. DBAs, we're going, it's a pain, yes? Nod. Yes, if you think it's a... Okay, good. You need to be continuously practicing that deployment. You need to be continuously testing that deployment. You need to be validating that it's occurring in the way you expect it to occur in production. Constantly. Every single time. It shouldn't be like, well, let me go in and edit the table. Let me go in and edit the store procedure. Let me go in and edit this on QA. No, 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 no. You edit stuff on dev. And then deployments happen, right? It's deployments, okay? You're always going through deployments, and that way you're testing it. Also, you set up continuous integration. That's a mechanism that allows you to automate the process. Continuous integration means you can automate deployments of your database all the time. Every time source control gets changed, you make the commit to source control because you've just updated your store procedure, it goes in, and boom, it gets built out to a database that gets tested. The deployment gets validated. You wrote something bad, you find out immediately. Not the night that you deploy it to production, right? You need to test this stuff constantly. And as much as you can, and this is the hard part, I mean, a really hard part for some of you, as much as you can, you try to get on copies of production. And if several of you didn't just flinch, you're not thinking about what I just said. Some of you are going, yeah, no big deal. But there's a bunch of you are kind of going, yeah, no, that ain't happening. You know, that 50 terabyte database, that's staying up there. But as much as you can, you do what you can with production, okay? It's just, these are just honest lessons from learning. The more you do deployment, the better you get at it. And the more you do deployment, the more you can automate it. And that's the key. And I'm now going to turn it back over to Justin.
So for extra testing as well, obviously unit testing for app code, people have been doing for a while. But for unit testing for the database, not so much. Is anyone unit testing their database?
Only if I have to.
Good on you. Has anybody heard of the T-SQL-T framework? Yes. Okay, so that's a really cool open source framework that lets you write stored procedures as the tests. We have a tool at Redgate called SQL Test, which allows you to run these tests with inside Management Studio. So we can run the tests here. Some we created before. So you can test various parts of the database, the logic. And what we can do is, additionally, we can put these into continuous integration. So as we move these changes through our process, and we can see here, I've got a TeamCity continuous integration server set up. And you can see for the database, for Simple Talk, we've got 5 tests passed. Drill down, have a look at those. These are exactly the same tests as we were just looking at inside Management Studio, but these are ran in an automated fashion every time we make a commit. So there are loads of great things you can do with testing there.
Cool, that's great. So, I can't say it often enough. Every single time you do a deployment, it's practice, right? It just is. You know, it's and getting that deployment process down so you can automate it, so that you're not thinking about it too much, so you're not spending lots of time on it. Is anybody, I mean, who does manual deployments? Really, you generate code, you modify the code, you review the code, you know, you look through all that stuff over and over and over again at length. Fun, right? Okay, who likes server patching? Because it's probably the same people who thought that was fun, right? Okay, good. Nobody's liking server patching. Okay, cool. It's just, you've got to go through all this stuff. And the thing is development is going like a bat out of hell, right? Imagine this little gear spinning like crazy, right? It's going fast because developers want to just get the stuff done, right? Developers? Am I wrong? Cool. Good. I'm behind you. You should be doing your job. And your job is to get that stuff done as fast as possible. Go, 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 go. Now, database people, we're going, oh my God, my production server. But not if you think about it, and not if you get involved in deployments here. Go, go, go with the developers. Make your stuff go fast. Things are going to slow down at QA. It's a bigger gear, right? It's not spinning as fast as that one. It's got, well, it doesn't actually have more teeth, but bear with me. Pretend. It's got more teeth. It's going to spin a little slower. You're getting a chance to validate those deployments better. But it's still the same deployments, and it's still the same process. It's not going to be a shock. You're practicing the same stuff. And then you're going to go through the staging or pre-prod or whatever you guys call it. And yeah, I know, it's the same set of teeth. I would cheat it on my graphics. Cut me some slack. But still, the idea is that while that thing, the development's down there spinning like mad, QA is spinning slower, staging and pre-prod are spinning slower still. When things mess up here, where do you go to fix it? Anybody? Say it loud. Dev, right? And then what do? You've got to do another deployment, right? And once that's validated through the QA process, whatever kind of QA testing, blah, 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 you can do another deployment to here. So no matter what, you make the changes here, it gets deployed. You do the tests, it gets deployed. And you're constantly, constantly, constantly doing these deployments in a slower and more methodical fashion in order to get ready to finally do the one to production, and it's going to work the first time. Why? Because you've been practicing the heck out of it. You've done it 75 times by now, or 100 or 150 or God knows how many, right? It's been constantly, constantly reinforced that what's going to production has been checked. Let's see how to do it.
So the challenge of having lots of environments is obviously that we're going to have to automate this process. Otherwise, it's just going to take us so long to do it. This is where I'd like to introduce Deployment Manager. I think I showed you briefly, if anyone was in the keynote this morning, we've had a brief look at this already. If we have a quick look at the product page, so we can see a nice diagram explaining the general process and how it works. So you create your web app, your database, you publish those to Deployment Manager as a package, and then these same packages are deployed to all of the different servers that you need to. And that's the part that gives it the repeatability. A nice little testimonial by a happy customer. I should mention that we did release version 2 of this tool on Monday, hot off the press. It's hot stuff.
Sorry.
And there is a free version available, up to 5 projects that you can try out on the website. So,
wait, what is that last part?
yeah, free.
Say it again.
Free.
Cool. All
Free.
right.
Not a time limited
No,
trial.
no, it's
free for 5
it's
projects and 5 agents.
Five
So
projects, 5
Yep.
servers, free. Have fun. Go work on your deployment processes.
Let us know.
Right? It's a tool. It's a, you know, you guys, it's a hammer. Look at, there's a nail. There's a hammer.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank
Keep
you.
going.
Thank you. So let's look at some tools. Okay, so we have, this is a dashboard. So in this particular case, I've got 4 different environments set up. All of these are completely configurable. You can choose whichever environments you would like. If I go to the environment screen, obviously on this machine, these are set up to point to this particular machine as well, but these can be remote servers, it establishes a secure connection, and you can deploy to multiple machines at the same time. It's really quite configurable. We've got the simple talk website set up here as a project. And if we have a look, so obviously between these different environments, if we're going to be deploying a database, we might need to configure how we're deploying or where we're deploying. We've got a different server for this database, maybe it's on the same server with a different database name. How's that going to work? How do we configure it between those environments? That's done through variables. So you can see here, really simple database name, and we can change these. And you can configure them per environment, or per machine, or per step. So it's really quite flexible. How do we actually then get our changes into Deployment Manager? If we start from Management Studio, so let's say we've made our changes, the changes I just made earlier. To do this, we've created some extensions, so you can publish straight from Management Studio or Visual Studio. We have command line tools to do this as well, which we'll have a look at in a bit. But it's as easy as publish from the database, and we can then go through and deploy to Deployment Manager. We just choose a few details, it remembers the settings for us, and we can go through. I'm not going to use this now because I have continuous integration set up, so I've got it set up to automatically do the publish and deploy from the command line. So let's have a look. So while I've been talking, obviously those changes that I made originally to the latest environment, watch here, watch around this bit. I wonder if it's going to update with zoom it. There we go.
Yeah,
it doesn't update while
a,
zoom it's working.
You can do control 4 on the,
yeah.
No, sorry.
So we can see, so this I mentioned is static data. This just reference lookup data in a table that we've source controlled alongside the schema. So we've made a change and I committed it. And we've automatically updated the environment. So if we want to now deploy this to the QA team, how are we going to do this? Let's just refresh, make everything's up to date. So version 1.100 is the latest version. That's what we want. Deploy it to our testing environment. Go. And the process that it's using is using the same SQL compare technology to deploy the database. For the web application, it's doing some really clever stuff with reconfiguring IIS. There's various settings on how we can control that behavior. But it's the same tried and true technology you're used to for the database. So if we have a look at testing, let's just refresh. There we go, extra change. So that wasn't too hard. And that's the same, exactly the same deployment process that was happening for development as for testing that we can continue to use through the later environment. So we can be testing that deployment process as well. Cool.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah, that's
cool. It. That was fun. No, I'm serious. I love that bit. That's my favorite things, watching the things go through. So he mentioned it. Justin mentioned it several times, but I mean, I like to bring it back up. DBAs, man, the days of hiding in the closet are done, right? You just can't. We're not sitting there running backups anymore. Does anybody just do nothing but backups? Okay, good. The days when we just sat around doing backups and security are gone. There's all kinds of integration going on with reporting teams, development teams, directly into the business. I mean, you're definitely cross-connected into everything, I hope. Because if you're not, your job's probably going to go away. Can't put it any other way. You've got to be cross-connected in everything. You've got to be thinking about everything, and you've got to get out there and work with the dev teams. You have to. Because the dev teams are smart. They are doing good work. They are supporting the business the same way you are. Yeah, I grant you, they are not thinking about production the way you do. But that's the strength you're bringing to the team. So if you're going to make that team, and if you're going to bring your strength into it, then what you've got to do is completely and tightly couple the application to the code, the application to the database, right? Their code to your code. They've got to be connected together. Once they're connected together, which I don't know any other way to do it except source control. And I'm, just don't. I just don't know any other way to do it except source control. But once they're connected together, they get labeled together, or versioned, or whatever, What's Mercurial do? It's not label, it's tag. Thank you. Tag. They get tagged together. But you do that together. When you do deployments, you deploy it together. You work on that integration between the two teams. You don't come at it from an adversarial standpoint. Yes, you must protect production, but the best way to protect production is to get with that development team, get involved in their development process, and integrate so that you can go, wait a minute, this is stupid. And let's stop it before we get too far. But even more importantly, don't say this is stupid. Say this is stupid, and here's what we're going to do instead. Right? Get in there and integrate. That's odd. Database is deployed first. I understand why I put that in there. I forgot. Sorry, my bad. At least the way we've got it set up now is we do deploy the database first. Why? So I heard someone say it's more important. Okay, I agree. It is more important. We lead the way. Database leads the way. No, that's actually not the reason. Well, the app won't work without it. True. Well, not necessarily. Maybe it's just got an information persistence layer. Yes? No. Bingo. Which one's going to roll back quicker? App code or database? App code. App code can. Done. What'd you do? I deployed and undeployed. That was fast. Yeah, okay, databases, we got to get it right. And if we don't get it right, we got to roll back immediately, right? And a rollback process could take a little time, possibly, depending on how we did by the way, snapshots are your friend during deployment processes. Anybody not using snapshots on deployments? Because rollback is much easier with a snapshot than it is with a bloody restore. Anyway, deploy the database first, then deploy the app code, because if you have to roll back, you want to roll back immediately on that database, not get everything all set up. The app's going, yeah, this is great. New data's coming in, and oops, oh gosh, we didn't quite get that right. Yeah, okay, that's not going to be cool, because now you're rolling back doesn't involve just undoing the changes. Now it involves trying to keep the new data in place while you undo whatever you messed up. Oh boy, that's fun, right? No, can I do a server patch, please? Okay. Cool. You're up.
So we're deploying the app and the database together. So how many people are working on websites as well, or the web application, or the application of code as well as the database? Anyone doing that? Yeah, cool. Okay, so the deployment manager tool is not just for databases. Obviously, we've got the compare technology in there, but it also works just the same for applications. So if we have a look at the steps page, this is how we see we can configure the different components that we put inside the software. We've got the SimpleTalk database first, as we mentioned. We've got the SimpleTalk web application next. So what we're going to do is make a really simple change in Visual Studio. So you're going to time me. Hello world, SQL in the city. And we will also...
Wait, you're not supposed to type in demos, do you?
No, you're not. But, okay. I did it perfectly.
Sorry.
And we're going to uncomment this little section here. So you remember the original task I was given is I want to add the views to the web page in exactly the same way as we have the comments. So uncomment that line there. Here's one I prepared earlier. And I'm just going to commit this. So obviously exactly the same process we mentioned in Management Studio. You can publish straight to Deployment Manager. Exactly the same feature is here. We can publish directly to Deployment Manager in exactly the same way. You can configure the feed that you want to deploy to. Okay, I'm just going to commit those changes. So I'm not going to publish it again because I've got continuous integration set up with auto publish and deploy, which I'm going to show in a little bit. One really nice thing to briefly show about the website stuff. I don't want to go too deep on this, but there are some really cool features. So we have a web config file, right? We can also transform this for the different environments with these web config transforms just by the name that's in there. So Deployment Manager will apply these transforms at deployment time. But the even nicer way to do this is inside the Deployment Manager tool, all of these variables, they can be used to configure the deployment behavior. But additionally, they can be used to drop in replacement values into the web config. So if you've got key value pairs in there, you can just replace these straight out per environment. It means that you can keep some of the deployment concerns outside of the build process, which is nice. So, oh, and the final thing to mention as well is that we just added in version 2 a nice feature to be able to, if the website doesn't exist, we create it for you. The next release of Deployment Manager is doing exactly the same for the database. If it doesn't exist, we'll create it. There are options and variables you can set to configure how that gets deployed, but that's really nice for A, when you're initially setting things up, but also B, when you're just wanting to deploy to a fresh environment. It just makes things easy that you can get that configuration locked down as well. So if I refresh this, I should have a new version 101. Refresh my website. Can I see my changes? Ta-da! So this is the CI process happening in the background. So we have my naught views. Let me zoom in. Obviously, I'm going to need to start visiting these articles now. But cool. Thanks. That's the end of that section.
Cool. That's great. So it did the database and the code. That was like one step.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's exactly what I told him to do. That's great. I can't believe that worked. The rest of the developers out there should listen to your DBAs the same way. Wow, nobody laughed at that one. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. That wasn't funny. Okay, cool. As my editor once said after I wrote what I thought was an excellent article on how to do a bunch of stuff inside of SQL Server, he's like, yeah, well, this is all fine and good, and you've covered the basics, but how about a few handbrake turns around the square, quote unquote? Fine. Let's get people out of the way. Who here wants to do a deployment 5 and 6 times a day? Who here wants to do a deployment every single time a developer changes code? Me neither, right? So get me out of the process. I will set it up. I will advise you, or I will do things for you. I'll get in the way to set it up, but then get me out of there. I don't want to do it. Matter of fact, I don't want to do it at all because it takes too long. I mean, cool, I'll get this great tool. It's called SQL Compare. I know this company, Redgate. It's neat, right? And I'll set it up so it compares these two databases. It generates a script and puts the script out. Heck, I can even put it in the command line. But I'm going to have to check it. I'm going to have to figure out which ones I'm doing. And oh my God, wait, you don't want that code, but you want this code? Hang on, this just got hard, right? It slows things down. So we're going to speed things up. You want to make things fast. You want to make it repeatable. You want to be able to do it multiple times over and over and over again. Because as we said, you screw up the deployment to pre-prod or to staging, you've got to go back to dev to fix it. You're not, DBAs, you're not fixing it in place ever, ever, ever. Right? A couple of nods, not enough. Developers, slap them. Okay? But take advantage of the tools you know. Who here is doing PowerShell? Hands high. That's not enough. Why aren't you doing PowerShell? Okay, so answer me after the thing. I want to hear it. Why aren't you doing PowerShell? PowerShell is awesome, and Microsoft is thoroughly invested in it. If Microsoft's going there and you're a Microsoft SQL Server DBA working on a Windows product, why aren't you following along behind Microsoft? I'm not saying you have to love them. I'm not saying you have to have Bill Gates' child. I'm just saying you work with Microsoft, right? You work with them, and they're setting up this automation tool called PowerShell, and it is great. It is very good. It is a complete and utter management system that allows you to put things under control so you can automate the fairly well out of it. And you want to automate this stuff. You want to script it all. You want to automate it all because you don't want to have to touch it. And why? Because if you script it and automate it and test it and it works, hands off, back away. It's working. Right? And as long as you keep running it that way, it'll work for you over and over again. And if it messes up, okay, cool. Figure out the spot it messed up in, modify the code, test it, validate it, and now it's working again. Walk away. It allows you guys to get out of the way and start doing more stuff you want to do. With query tuning, yeah? Is that just me? I love that, right? And I want to do more of that and less stupid deployment stuff. No offense to you guys, right? It's just I don't want to have to do that work. So you work like a fiend for an hour, and then you've got the, well, maybe a bit more than an hour, but you get the deployment processes in place, and then you automate them and don't touch them again, which is great because that frees up time to do the important things. Query tuning, query tuning. Okay? Now, tear us up. Tear it up. Handbrake turns, man.
Handbrake turns.
Yes.
No problem. Well, actually, we'll see. So, if we want to, we've obviously seen using Deployment Manager, we've seen how to automate the release process, but we've not gone all the way. We can go further. The piece that we haven't shown, and I've mentioned a couple of times we've been using it, is continuous integration. Now, I know David Atkinson did his talk just a little while ago on continuous integration for databases. I will show you how Deployment Manager can be used via the command line and triggered via the command line to automate as part of the CI process as well. So, let's have a look. So we've got inside our TeamCity, and first thing to mention is this is not just TeamCity. We show this because we've made an add-in that looks really nice for it, and it's a really nice experience. But the same underlying technology is available via the command line to be used from any CI system, whether it's TFS, Jenkins, Bamboo, whatever you're using, whatever you want to use. If we look at the database, we see for SimpleTalk we've got a database, a web app, and the deploy config. If we look at the database, we can see this is the Redgate extension into TeamCity. And again, this is all using SQL compare technology to do the magic. I won't go into the details of how this works here. The important bit I want to focus on is the end section. This is where we create the package at the end of the CI process for Deployment Manager. So we're making a package called simpletalk.database. Fairly straightforward. We tell it where Deployment Manager lives, and I'm giving it my API key so that Deployment Manager knows it can trust me. So TeamCity has been set up to trigger on commit, and so every time a commit happens, this process kicks off, we make a new database package. And if I can have a look, you can see here, maybe I need to zoom in for this one. Again, zoom it, you have to press Control 4.
Control 4 allows you to have an active, yeah.
There we go.
Perfect.
This is slightly precarious when using this zoomed in mode, but hopefully you can see. You remember before I showed the scripts folder that source control was synchronizing to in the source control system? Exactly the same structure is used inside the package. So it's the same transparent set of SQL creation scripts that are used. And there are some other bits of information, metadata, new spec file that describes. So this is based on the NuGet technology for NuGet packages. You don't need to learn NuGet to use it. It's just what we use under the hood because there are more tools available for it, and it works really nicely. So let's not invent our own. But yeah, so that's what's inside a database package. A website package is very similar. In this case, we've got all of our ASP website, and along with our web configs and so on. down the bottom. So Control 4, there we go. So that's the two types of packages, and I've shown you how the database one is created. The application one is created via a command line tool that we have for Deployment Manager. It's called rgpublish, and you can use it in a few ways. You can point this tool at a folder. It will take everything in that folder and put it in a package. Really simple. You can point it at a new spec file. That's a bit more flexible. You can choose which files you want in the folder. Or you can do it the even better way for a web app, which is you can point it straight to the web application project file, and it will package it up in exactly the right format automatically. So really easy to call this command line tool to do that. And this is installed out of the box when you install Deployment Manager as well. So that's how we create the packages. I should mention as well that because we can create these packages in this way, we can use custom PowerShell. So we mentioned that PowerShell is a great way to customize the deployments. If you want to do something custom, something specific, and let's face it, most people are going to need to do something specific, then you can include a PowerShell script to deploy whatever you need. And these PowerShell scripts have access to all of the variables that you've defined inside Deployment Manager, and you can do various things. In fact, so I actually have a hobbyist business that I run making sort of hobbyist software. I have an iPhone app. I'm using Deployment Manager for this, and I'm actually deploying the iPhone app to a service called TestFlight. I don't know if anyone knows TestFlight, but it's a really great way. So I can move my iPhone app from testing to early access. For me, I've got about 30 users there, all the way onto production, which would be the App Store. So it's a really nice way to automate the whole process, not just for websites, but you can use this to do whatever you need, essentially. And the final thing to show is, obviously, we've created the packages, but how do we actually tell Deployment Manager to deploy this automatically? You've been seeing that I've been making changes, and this latest environment's been updating itself. So this is a really nice way to set it up, because it means that the team has got somewhere they can go and see the latest version of your software at all times. From a single commit of either the database or the application, you've got somewhere you can go and see the latest version. And that's really nice. This is done by calling the command line, deploymentmanager.exe. As you can see here, with various arguments, tell it to please create me a release. This is the address, this is the project, this is the environment I want you to deploy to. So really easy. So to summarize, the things I've shown you are how to publish your apps, your databases, and various components into Deployment Manager, how to trigger deployments automatically, and then how to use Deployment Manager to track the different versions of the software that you have in your environments and then deploy between them. And obviously the final little plug, version 2 was released Monday, so please go and get it and try it. Thank you. Over to Grant.
That's great. Cool. All right.
Yes. It's stable.
Yeah, I had the beta. This is stable. I don't care what your process is. If I came to work for your company, I wouldn't care, right? Just tell me what it is. Give me a written document. Let me know what's expected of me, what I can expect of others, who's going to do what, where things are going to land, where things are going to move. Let's talk, right? Let's make it clear. Define a process, whatever that process might be. It's 5 times a day we want you to run SQL compare. Stupid, but okay, right? If it's defined and that's how we're going to run things, that's great. Let's do it, okay? Define a process. Work backwards from production. DBAs, think about it that way. You want to protect production. Development, their production is their development machines, the development process, development inside there. That's what they care about more. Work backwards and meet them in the middle. Find that way to get what they need in a way that protects the systems you have to protect. Because you guys have to protect them. That's your job. So make sure you do it. Get your database code in source control. If your database code is in source control, then your integration with the application teams is going to be very, very organic. It's going to flow, right? It's going to be, this whole Zen thing, just, it'll be great. You won't have fights anymore.
maybe.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight face. But anyway, yeah, pizza. Actually, my recommendation for the DBA team is to get a beverage budget. And then if you need something, or you've got to, have what we in America call a come to Jesus chat, then you could go out with a beverage budget. Anyway, integrate tightly with those development teams, because these guys know what they're doing. I mean, they do. I mean, they're smart, right? And frankly, smarter than me. I'm good at my job, but they're smart people. So figure out what they're doing and work with them on it, right? Because they're doing it for a reason most of the time. Sometimes they're doing crazy stuff. But that integration is going to allow you to identify that crazy stuff. When you're looking at that N+1 thing from Handbrake going, I just never seen anything like this before. You can have the chat rather than running screaming down the hallway, what the heck are you thinking? Have you seen the system? Don't do that. Trust me. That's bad. But it allows you to test and validate your code, and you can automate these things if you're able to get it defined. Step 1 allows the last step. You don't do this one, you're not up here, you can't get here. And you've got to get here. Unless you just enjoy doing everything manually, right? There's just no, I can't give you anything else. If you like just sitting there typing, great, go for it, right? But if you want to get to the point where you automate stuff, you've got to first do that. There's no getting around it. Is that our last slide? Oh, no. Do we also have I've lost track of where we're at. Okay, so hopefully you guys, at least we talked about how to understand and set up your own deployment mechanisms, because your mechanisms are yours, not mine, right? I mean, the tool set we've got is great, frankly, because it's flexible. Because it's not saying, well, now if you'll just go over here and we'll just plug this in and you'll follow along behind us. No, we're not doing that. We're saying like, hey, you know what? You guys are going to do something, right? We know that you've got to do multiple deployments. We know that you want to automate them. And we know you've got to go to multiple environments. So we're going to set up this mechanism to do those things. How, where, why? Your call. We've just got you propped up. Now it's your problem, right? Now you figure out what to do. It's great. It's a great way to approach it. Learn the tools, right? Too many people are not using PowerShell, flat out. And acquire the knowledge, and that's it.